At this point, you must have heard that AWS is charging for all public IPv4 addresses, including Elastic IPv4's effective February 1st, 2024. IPv4 addresses have become increasingly scarce resource, and the cost to acquire them has increased to over 300% over the past 5 years. This change reflects in AWS's own operational cost and also their intention to encourage a bit more frugal behavior around the use of public IPv4 addresses. And it's also one step ahead to thinking about accelerating and designing your systems to adopt for IPv6 as a modernization measure for the future. So what are elastic IPs? Elastic IP addresses is a static IPv4 address designed for dynamic cloud computing. It is associated on an account level and provided by AWS. AWS uses elastic IP as a method to mask failure of an EC2 instance or software, and it allows you to keep your IP addresses and maintain contact with your account even if your AWS instance goes down. These are a powerful tool for establishing communication with the internet in AWS. But with great power comes great responsibility, and it's important to understand how to use them effectively. For example, I've summarized here what a public IP address and elastic IP address is, but the key catch over here is that elastic IPs are going to be charged by AWS starting from February of 2024. So how do I monitor, analyze and audit my use of public IPv4 addresses on AWS and take actionable measures to frugally use my elastic IPv4s? In this video, we're going to look at 2 easy steps to identify IPv4 usages. And the 2 key steps to identify the IPv4 usage is using AWS Public IP Insights, which is a new feature from VPC IP Address Manager, commonly known as IPAM. The second solution is to use the one-click quick start guide that essentially leverages a Lambda function which discovers unassociated elastic IPs across all your AWS regions and your AWS accounts. Insights gathered by the Lambda function are stored inside simple storage service called as Amazon S3, and you can further visualize this data through cost and usage reports. The AWS console and see this in action. So I'm looking for IPAM, that is VPC IP Address Manager, which is essentially a VPC feature launched a long time ago by AWS. We start by creating an IPAM in order to monitor your IP space across your entire Amazon Web Services account, and if you have a multi-account setup, so across your entire organization, okay? And then you can find that there is a new feature called as Public IP Insights. And if you click on this feature, it gives you the necessary highlights about this feature. And then when you click on it, you can actually see this in action. For example, I have one unassociated elastic IP in my account, and I have a recommendation in order to make a plan to use this as, elastic IP or to simply release it. So this charge for elastic IPs will be applied to all AWS services, including Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud, EC2, relational databases, all your RDS instances, Kubernetes, EKS, ECS nodes, and other AWS services that can have a public IPv4 address associated or allocated to it in AWS region. Here you can see a summary of all the public IP address associated, whether it's associated or disassociated, and as well as which security groups, subnets it's associated with. This information is already useful for us in order to analyze and monitor where our elastic IPs are associated I would highly encourage to use the Elastic IPAM service. The VPC IPAM service is free of cost to use, and it's an effective way to track your usage of Elastic IPs as well as public IPs across your AWS accounts. So, the second way is to use cost and usage reports in order to analyze and make cost estimates on the number of Elastic IPs that are sitting idle across your AWS accounts and regions. In order to set this up, you need to do a few simple steps that I have highlighted in the description box below. It's essentially a CloudFormation template that you have to run so that you can actually deploy a Lambda function that scans for resources that are sitting idle with Elastic IP addresses not in use, and stores all the Lambda function will store all of that data into a simple storage service that is your S3 bucket. The cost and usage reports will easily extract this data from simple storage service and actually give you those estimates in cost and usage report console. These are the two easy and effective ways for you to identify your IPv4 usage on AWS and take actionable steps in order to further optimize your IPv4 usage. Stay tuned for the next video where I explain the best practices and alternatives to designing and taking architecture decisions while you're considering Elastic IPv4 addresses. Stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching so far.